And at this time, I ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Ashcraft?
Here.
Councilmember Goodrich?
Here.
Councilmember Griffiths?
Here.
Councilmember Herring?
Here.
Councilmember Rizzo?
Here.
Councilmember Wiedemann?
Here.
Mayor.
Many of us can remember the beauty and freedom of the best eyesight.
Seat. We're going to call the Torrance Refinery workshop to order, or back from our continuance from the August 5th date. And at this time, I ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Ashcraft?
Here.
Councilmember Goodrich?
Here.
Councilmember Griffiths?
Here.
Councilmember Herring?
Here.
Councilmember Rizzo?
Here.
Councilmember Wiedemann?
Here.
Mayor Fury.
Here. Everybody please rise and do a flag salute. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And from city staff.
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the City Council. Adam Chaparyan, City Manager's Office. Tonight is a continuation of the August 5th refinery workshop, and we have two issues on the agenda for discussion. First is the Torrance Refinery Company update regarding a power supply reliability project. That's the SCE, Southern California Edison, in collaboration with the refinery. And number two is seeking direction from council regarding the 2.7 million AQMD supplemental environmental project fund air quality improvement projects. With us tonight, we have Steve Steach, refinery manager, as well as Dr. Fine from the AQMD, and myself, city manager's office. And for the interest of time, we'll keep you there. I think you can see the...
Thank you, we can.
There's not too many slides, so...
Okay.
With that, I will turn it over to Steve Steach, who will give us an update on the project for the electrical reliability.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, staff, and fellow citizens. I'm happy to say that since our last update, the refinery's operated safely, reliably, and environmentally responsibly. That's our commitment to you and the community. In fact, the refinery's been operating better than it has in many, many years. We've addressed most of our major equipment issues, and our focus is now shifted to investing in our employees. We kicked off a year-long training and mentoring focus program for our employees. It's called Operation Flagship. I'm proud to announce it's called that because it's aimed at improving our operation capability and position us as the flagship of PBF Energy. So we're excited about that. It's been embraced and already seeing positive results. So that's really our focus for the next year. I have one slide tonight. One important slide to cover. There was like, there's the qualifiers. I guess I'll start with the electrical reliability update. I'm speaking on behalf of both Edison and the refinery. Background's up at the top. Of course, this project improves our reliability by tying into the 220,000 volt Southern California Edison high voltage, more reliable transmission system. It does it by tying in adjacent to the refinery, coming in to the refinery with two underground feeders, and tying into a new 220,000 volt switching station that's located on the refinery property. And then the refinery will, from there, build new substations and connect that to the switching station, and then connect that to the units as the units shut down for turnarounds going forward. That's the plan. We had met, announced before that we met with the PUC and got positive feedback from them. The updates are very short. We did receive from the City of Torrance a permit for the new, to construct for the new switching station, so thank you for that. We also received a notice of exemption, which means the project is exempt from California Environmental Quality Control Act, so thank you for that. We're continuing to work with Southern Cal Edison on the design details and the construction details. We hope to be in a position to begin project execution later this year or early next year. That would be mean ordering long lead time items like the cable and the switching station. And the only other item of note is there was an update scheduled on September 7th with the South Coast Air Quality District Hearing Board to update on the progress on the stipulated abatement order. That was delayed until September 28th at the request of the district. So that's where we are. Thank you. Any questions for me?
Are there any questions from council? I see none. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to invite Dr. Fine to discuss the SCP project.
Good afternoon, members of the council. Happy to be here again. This will just be a very brief update of where we stand on the environmental improvement projects under the money from the fines that were imposed upon the refinery back from the 2015 and then 2016 incidents. So just by way of background, you're all familiar with this, but just for members of the public, there was a refinery explosion back in February of 2015. And there was another restart in 2016 that led to some violations and then some settlement funds for those violations being received. Over 2.7 million of those settlement funds were set aside for supplemental environmental projects. We released an RFP and we had 15 proposals submitted in response to the RFP, totaling over $15 million. We had a special administrative committee meeting to present staff's recommendations, and the governing board approved our recommendations for funding in July of this year. The recommendations were to fund the two highest scoring proposals that represented the most complete projects with the greatest benefits to the community. The two highest scoring proposals were Sonoma Technology and the City of Torrance. Both of those proposals had a lot of overlap. Both contained monitoring systems as well as alerting systems. We didn't want to fund multiple projects that had overlapping monitoring and overlapping alerting systems because of the confusion that could cause to the public. So we wanted to combine the best elements of both these proposals. Our review panel, our technical review panel, did think Sonoma Technology had the best fence line community monitoring proposal. And they also thought that the City of Torrance had the best kind of alert system that had the sirens and enhanced alert systems. And we thought, from a staff perspective, that it was best to have those alert systems handled by an entity that included the first responders, the fire departments, and those that would normally do these types of alerts. And we've been in discussions with both Sonoma Technology and the city, your staff, about how these two systems might work together. And so right now, where we've ended up, and I think we've come to some level of understanding about how the systems would work together, is that we would like to fund the upgraded public alert system for the city. You already have a network in place, you already have the connections to the first responders, and this would really be in the instances of a call to action, a real emergency that required the public to take action, evacuate, shelter in place, or follow the instructions of a fire department or a public health agency, and all the things that come along with that, access to reverse 911, access to text alerts, all those things that are already in place but could be enhanced, we would like to fund, and part of that is also additional sirens that could be placed out in the community. For the monitoring system on Sonoma Tech, the data would be available from the monitoring data in real time. The public would be able to view all that air quality information on the website, and then by subscription sign up to get reports, daily reports, monthly reports, or other types of notifications via text or email, but this would not be intended to be the type of information that would require, say, an evacuation or a shelter in place. From a technical perspective, we don't think, based on air quality measurements alone, that should be an automatic call for action. There needs to be a human element in deciding when that should occur because of the potential for false positives. We do a lot of monitoring at AQMD. There are false positives. We need to assess the data before those types of actions take place. So this will provide data that will help determine the severity and extent of a refinery incident, that will help the city decide what actions to take. And we will be available, and this is part of the discussions, in interpreting that data at all times to help the city make any decisions about how to alert the public if an action needs to be taken. So as I mentioned, we've tried to clarify how the two systems would interface in ongoing discussions with both your staff and the other contractor, Sonoma Technology. I think we're in a place where we have that level of understanding, and we hope we can work with your staff to implement these projects. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the council? I see none. Thank you,
Thank
Doctor.
you, Mayor. Moving forward, the city will continue to meet with the Torrance Refining Company as we have been doing since the inception of the project. We have a joint meeting between the city, Southern California Edison, as well as the Torrance Refining Company. We will work with the AQMD to integrate the Torrance alerts with your council's concurrence with the alerted siren system. That includes the installation of 8 audible sirens throughout the city, utilizing our existing fire stations. So if there's an incident of the magnitude where it will require activation, it'll be tied to our Everbridge system. In regards to communications, we promote and enhance Torrance alerts, public safety notifications. We have a dedicated website, and I also want to mention tonight's discussion will be available after 9 p.m. on the website listed there, torranceca.gov refinery, and we'll continue to work with the refinery on their shelter-in-place campaign. Moving forward, we are monitoring the CalARP regulations, which are scheduled to be out October 1. There's also the Department of Industrial Relations Process Safety Management Regulations in 2017. Myself and Chief Dumais are part of the AQMD proposed rulemaking process, which includes 1180, Community Fence Line Monitoring. It has a lot of tie-in to what we're going to do with the project in the near future, as well as 1410, which is the use of HF at petroleum refineries. I also want to plug that tomorrow night there will be a working group meeting here at the Toyota Meeting Hall at 5:30 p.m. hosted by AQMD. So we will be on the refinery workshop update continuation, and we'll be providing you updates throughout. Now, with the council's concurrence, we will work with the AQMD. We will seek your approval of the staff recommendation is to accept the award of the enhancement of our alerting system, which includes the siren notification. And with that, we're available to answer any questions council may have.
Are there any questions from council for staff? I see none. Now would be the time for questions, comments from the public. We have someone signed up, I see.
Yes, Your Honor, Steve Goldsmith.
Good evening, Steve Goldsmith. There was a mention of the Rule 1410 workshop. It's been progressing quite well, and I'm surprised that a fuller report to the council and the public on the progress. I have not been able to go to all of the meetings, but the two main points that I gleaned from it that were of quite note. One was that the staff has made an initial determination that the measures taken to make hydrofluoric acid safe are not sufficient, and that the refinery needs to stop using this deadly chemical. And I know a number of the council members have said we're waiting to hear for the results of an outside agency, and now we have had Norton industry report, and we now have the AQMD staff have determined that this is an unsafe product that could have catastrophic effects on the lives and the economy of our community. The other thing that was quite noted is there were 3 presentations, one from Chevron, one from, I think, DuPont, and one from another company, that there are alternatives commercially available. Chevron is in the process of transforming their refinery in Salt Lake City from HF to another substance. I'm not a scientist, so I don't have the names, but somebody I'm sure will give you the names, or the record is there on the internet. And that these are, they're ready to sell that to any, and they said that in the meeting. Ron Spackman from the Chevron refinery said they're ready to sell it to anybody. DuPont said they're ready to sell conversion to sulfuric acid, and this other company is not quite on a it sounded like it wasn't as quite as ready as the other two, but certainly there are now safer alternatives, and it just comes down to the question of spending the money. They're doing the conversion in Salt Lake City, and they'll have a very short time that the refinery will be offline. They're building it, and then they're going to plug it into their system. So I think it's time for the City Council of Torrance to take a firm stand and demand that the refinery remove as quickly as possible. I'm encouraged by the fact that you have given them a CEQA exemption, and I recommend that you do that for this conversion process. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else signed up?
No one else has signed up at this time, Your Honor.
Anybody wish to be heard?
Yeah, I put my card in there. Deng Maneng, 5215 Lenore Street, Torrance, California. Absolutely, I want to second everything Steve Goldsmith has said. I am a scientist. And I think the AQMD has made it very clear that the evidence that the Torrance Refining Company has said that it will not form a cloud is not sufficient. And that's why they're proceeding with Rule 1410, possibly even accelerating its implementation. But they all say that it's going to be a bunch of years, and so they're concentrating on the risk, the residual risk from still having HF while the conversion process goes on. And so, the City Council's always said, yes, we do want to wait for the experts. So I think a lot of the people in Torrance are concerned that they would have hoped that you, our elected representatives, would lead the charge instead of trying to go the other direction. So I think the evidence is now in with what the AQMD has said, and I think that should be enough confidence to have your august body support them, go on record as supporting them. The people of Torrance have been waiting for this for a very long time, and I think it would give the people of Torrance additional confidence in their government that they are capable of acting in the public safety now that pretty much the data is in. And lastly, I had asked when at a previous workshop, actually there were two. The very first one, the fire chief's people said, a little modifier goes a long way. The science does not support that. They may have misread or misinterpreted. So I asked the chief to do a calculation with, they don't have to disclose what the proprietary stuff is, but do a calculation saying proprietary this, proprietary additive that, and this is where we get our airborne reduction factors, and do the same thing for pure HF, and compare them and show them to the public, and maybe it'll help you also to see what a lot of people, including scientists like me, have said, that HF as it's presently used and constituted is not safe for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Sally Hayati. I'm a Torrance resident and the president of the Torrance Refinery Action Alliance. Good evening. So the City of Torrance, as my understanding, has been given funds to improve the refinery warning system. This is a great opportunity, so long as the improvements made are based on a correct understanding of the hazard that's being warned against, posed by modified hydrofluoric acid. So unfortunately, the city has been making it clear it still accepts what are now discredited claims that MHF is significantly safer than HF. In fact, MHF is over 98% hydrofluoric acid by molecule count, and it is just as deadly. As the Chemical Safety Board acknowledged in 2016, the near miss on 50,000 pounds of MHF in 2015 nearly caused a catastrophic release. The US EPA investigation found in 2017 that MHF risk is significantly understated in Torrance's risk management program report, and that the 3.2 mile toxic distance has no basis in fact. It further stated the refinery should use the toxic distance for hydrofluoric acid, or HF, without any mitigation credit being allowed for MHF. Recently, the AQMD staff did reach an initial conclusion that the refinery has not proven MHF has any safety advantage over HF, and the 8 independent scientists and engineers on the TRA Science Advisory Panel have shown that MHF forms a ground-hugging aerosol cloud, just like HF. Independent experts have spoken, and we're hoping that the city will listen as a whole in the interest of community safety. So the MHF from a single settler tank could form an acid plume large enough to kill for 8 miles and cause serious irreversible harm for another 8 miles as it drifts radially out from the refinery. The new warning system therefore needs a regional approach. The current siren can't be reliably heard for even 1.5 miles within the unit. And few South Bay residents sign up for Torrance alerts because they haven't been informed about MHF. They haven't been told. Their alerts aren't reliably quick enough to give us a chance to shelter in place. So until MHF is eliminated by a ban, the community education on MHF, emergency planning and drills for the community, a sectored and extensive system of warning, and multi-city cooperation. So we're hoping the city can cooperate with other South Bay cities, with the AQMD and the state of California to come up with an adequate system that will warn the residents of this real danger. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Bill Daly, retired Fire Chief, City of Beverly Hills. I've spoken to you before and have written a letter, and I will not be redundant in what I've already stated. I'd just like to say that the best way to provide fire and life protection is to eliminate the cause. The second thing is early detection. Third is automatic extinguishment or control till the fire department gets there and is able to put it out. In the event of hydrogen fluoride, the opportunity for control or extinguishment seems highly unlikely. Certainly it can be detected. After that, we don't have much of a chance the way things are right now should there be a major incident. I would like to suggest to you to have the courage and the wisdom to do something like the state legislature did in 1980. In the 70s, there was a series of large high-rise fires and lots of deaths across the nation. It culminated in 1980 with the MGM Grand Fire in Las Vegas, in which 80-some people were killed and hundreds injured. The state legislature had the wisdom and the courage to adopt a retroactive requirement that all high-rise buildings over 55 feet in the state of California, be retrofitted with fire sprinklers. They had lots of opposition by thousands of property owners, yet they had the courage and the wisdom. I suggest that it would be very wise of you to do that too.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and fellow citizens. My name is Betsy Brainham with the Torrance Refinery and the PBF Energy. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we have been doing. We've met with the AQMD a number of times. We've given them a plethora of information, of data. We met with them recently, and they provided us some information back, basically a presentation and some modeling that they had done. And we went through and we discussed it, and through that discussion, we were able to let the AQMD know some of the information that they were using, some of the assumptions were incorrect. So through that data, we realized that they do not have a full understanding of the data that we provided to them. We've asked them for another meeting. They have agreed to come back. And so I was with Dr. Fine earlier as well, and we were talking about this. And Dr. Fine said that they will continue to work with us, that they have not come up with any conclusions yet. So they have not done that. The information that they have put out is preliminary. The other thing that I wanted to address is that someone spoke earlier about the Chevron technology that they said is commercially available. And in fact, Chevron did say the information is commercially available, but they said it is not proven. So they will sell it to you, but it's not proven technology. They haven't even put a unit in yet. So I just wanted to make sure that we cleared up some of that and that you understand. And if you have any questions, please give us a call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm John Bailey, President of the Southeast Torrance Homeowners Association. I wanted to offer some comments tonight. First of all, I think it's very, very important that we have a monitoring system that's got some teeth. As you know, the AQMD and the refineries sat down and worked out what is known as Rule 1118 to monitor the sulfur oxide emissions from the refineries in Southern California. The target for the Torrance Refinery in 2017 is 54,800 pounds of sulfur oxide emissions. These numbers are supplied by Torrance Refinery to the AQMD. The AQMD reports it to the public. So through June 30th of this year, the AQMD is reporting 323,370 pounds of sulfur oxide emissions. If we didn't have that monitoring program and the information available to the public, we wouldn't know that the refinery has exceeded their goals. You know, we've heard a lot of comments about the city not being the experts and not being the regulatory agency and not being the scientists. And we need to leave it to the experts and the regulators to do the work. Well, that's been done. The AQMD had a very open public process. And now we're going forward, thank goodness, on the monitoring system, the siren system, and the alert system. But I want to make sure that as we go forward, the monitoring proposal will always include details on HF and MHF. Something else that I think we need to focus on is the AQMD should be the expert, not the City of Torrance, for determining the threshold and the concentration of pollutants that are safe to the residents and the community. And most importantly, the monitoring program, the siren system, and the alert system must have truly open and independent third-party audits. And I think the AQMD can handle that responsibility. Thanks for listening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Alex Lafarga. I'll be brief. I'm a business agent for Labor's Local 1309. We represent laborers, 3,000 laborers who work in the South Bay area, many of which who work in a refinery. As a matter of fact, my father worked in a refinery, two of my uncles worked in the refinery, and my godfather as well. I would just like to stand in front of you and reaffirm that the laborers and all the other building trades have the utmost commitment to safety in the refineries. One of the questions I asked my dad when I was a kid, when he left to work, is, aren't you worried working around all this machinery, working in this environment? The thing he always stressed was safety, training, and preparedness. Right now, our laborers who work in the refinery go through the highest levels of safety and training to where we feel confident putting them there, where we feel confident in their ability to perform the job. I think they operate at a very high level, perhaps the highest level they can, and we will continue to push them towards that and push further training to keep them even safer and more prepared in the future. So I just want to remind you guys that the people in the refinery are also doing their best to keep everyone safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, does the council have any questions? Councilmember Griffith.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On the projects that the AQMD has selected for moving forward, has there been any timelines put out for any sort of implementation besides saying that these are the proposals that they're going to go with?
Now that, once we get council's concurrence, staff, the city staff will return with the request for awarding contracts to enhance our Everbridge system, as well as award the contract to Alertus.
So you're waiting for our concurrence before these come
Concurrence
forward?
with this concept, we're in the process of developing the concept of separating the systems, having an independent monitoring system through Sonoma Technology, and I can't speak to their timeline, but I imagine it'll be concurrent with the cities. And then from our perspective, we'll bring back contracts for your approval, and the funding will be available through AQMD. And I imagine we can move within the next few months.
Will you be requesting our concurrence tonight?
We'll request your concurrence to approve the city enhancing our Everbridge and installing the siren system.
So once you have our concurrence, is there a,
We'll bring back council items within the next few weeks to award the contracts.
I'm sure I and many of the people in the public are concerned at the slow pace that things seem to move, and I'm just wondering, is there any ways that any of this can be expedited?
Well, Councilman, since the AQMD board approved the award, the initial RFP award in July, we've been in conversation with both AQMD and Sonoma Technology. With tonight's action, we will be able to now move on the path to implementation.
I look forward to regular updates.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Councilmember Herring.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like either staff or Dr. Fine to respond to a comment that was made by John Bailey about exceeding the sulfur oxide emission and about the being a third-party audit to the findings moving forward.
So what the speaker was referring to is the facilities on a quarterly basis report their sulfur oxide emissions to us, and coming from the flares, they are given certain targets by which they're supposed to meet under our Rule 1118. This refinery has exceeded their targets in the past, and I guess this is preliminary data, which I just saw tonight. Looks like they likely exceeded their target this year. I think it gets reconciled at the end of the year. What happened, I think earlier this year, late last year, we amended Rule 1118 to remove the $4 million cap on the mitigation fees if they do go above the target. I don't know if they're there yet, but if we audit that data and it turns out to be true, there may be some more mitigation fees due. In terms of third-party audit, that's focused more on the monitoring aspect of the contract we're about to enter into with Sonoma, and part of the contractual arrangement between us and Sonoma will be our regular contractual oversight, but in a situation like this, there will be also some technical oversight and auditing that we can provide.
Follow up on the workshop tomorrow. Are you leading that workshop, and if so, what's the agenda?
So I'll be there tomorrow night. I have a large team working on this rule, as you can imagine. The agenda is essentially continuing the discussions that we've had at previous workshops. I think this might be the fifth or sixth workshop. What we'll be talking about is timeframes for implementation if HF were going to be phased out. So we need to look at all the considerations for, permitting, construction, the types of technologies, refinery turnaround schedules, and see what's a feasible time frame if our board makes a decision to phase out HF.
Thank you. Councilmember Rizzo.
Thank you, Your Honor. For Dr. Fine. I think you've heard from this council through Councilman Griffiths that timelines are important to us, and as we'll be holding our staff's feet to the fire in implementation of our aspect of the monitoring system, I hope
and pray that AQMD will be holding Sonoma's feet to the fire to get this system up and running as quickly as possible. So as we will be pressing our staff for timelines, hopefully you will be pressing Sonoma for timelines as well.
Absolutely, and we have been working feverishly to get the contract language in place, and the Sonoma contract is closer because we've still been discussing and waiting for the council to concur with staff on this, but we're getting close, and we'll be doing it as quickly as we possibly can. And the contract will have timelines, and we'll conduct that oversight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm a little bit concerned that having two entities involved in this process, with Sonoma having one aspect of it and we having the other aspect. When you have two agencies or two organizations doing it, will the information be available to us when we need it? I mean, that's one of my biggest concerns. It would seem one agency have responsibility for one aspect, and then we have the responsibility to give that information out. It seems like there's an opportunity for some miscues.
So this has been the key point in discussions with your staff and with Sonoma Technologies. So the system that Sonoma will be implementing will be providing near real-time data on their website, near real-time data to anyone who wants to get a report or information on the monitoring data to their cell phone by text or by email. Those are the same types of subscriptions the city staff can also sign up for. So the city, at a very basic level, the city has the same access to information as the entire public does. Now, if we want to work towards a more, a direct line of data into your system, that's been part of the discussions. And so for now, we're trying to get the contracts in place with a little bit of separation just to get things moving. But as things move forward, we might be able to work on some integration depending on, where things head. But we want to get some experience with the data first, generating the data, shaking down the equipment before there's some automatic transmittal that would lead to any kind of automatic alert.
And a lot of it, what we're talking about is technological information being dispersed. There's still a certain element of our community that are not tech savvy. So I guess that goes down to the siren aspect of it. So, the concern is that we get the information that is correct before we push that button. I know these are things, I guess, was between Sonoma and our city we're going to have to get through.
Well, it's with us as well.
Yeah.
I think we need to sit down with your staff and the fire department and talk about what the data means. The website needs to present to the public, putting the data in context for what that means. And we can even come to some guidance that we could provide the city as to what types of data coming in, how to interpret it, and what would be a real emergency acute problem or something that's just informational in terms of maybe slightly higher exposure on a certain day versus another day, or some other type of a high level that may be caused by a source other than the refinery. Mm-hmm. So we could sit down and work through all those issues, and as I said earlier, if it did rise to the level of a siren or some kind of call to action, then we would hope to be involved in that process and help interpret the data in real time with you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions from council? I see none. Thank you very much, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Back to staff.
Thank
what
you,
do you
Honor.
need from us?
I would like to seek your concurrence with approving the concept of the city implementing the enhanced Everbridge notification and alerted siren system.
Do we need a motion on that?
Okay. Yes, please.
Councilmember Herring.
Councilman Griffin, people to the punch.
I'll make that motion to concur with the recommendation.
Like I said, Councilmember Griffin.
I knew who you meant. I move to concur.
I'll second that.
Start voting, please. Your Honor, that motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. That concludes the workshop.
Thank you.
And we will be, do we need a recess to a
I will
motion?
yield to our counsel. Exec closed session.
Okay. Well, should I then mention this? Yeah, okay. Yeah. The council will now recess to closed session to confer with the city manager and city attorney on the agenda matters listed under 14A, public employee appointment, city attorney, and 14B, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. A closed session on these matters is authorized by California Government Code sections 54957B1 and 54956.9D4. And we will return to this chamber at 7 p.m. Thank you.